So today's topic is building integrations the Ballerina way. I'm Samir JSON. I'm a member of the Ballerina team at WSO2, and I'm based in Seattle. We just had a great summer. It just started raining like a few days ago. So exciting times ahead. Anyway, so the topic today is about integrations and why should you consider Ballerina for writing integrations. And then I'm going to take a simple integration and show various stages, like what would be the developer flow, what are the various steps that you need to consider when building an integration in Ballerina, and what are the capabilities available in the platform, in language, library, especially in the tooling, VS Code extension. What are the capabilities that can basically make you productive? So that's the topic. What is an integration? What do I mean by an integration here in this context? It's simply where integration is simply gluing different systems together to produce something useful. It can be your personal integrations. You want to automate your day-to-day stuff, and it can go up to these things. You can have enterprise integrations, right, to automate the stuff in the enterprise, right? So, and then they have Ballerina. Ballerina is not the only way to write integrations. Integration is very common. Traditionally, we've been using integration products like ESB, and they comes with proprietary DSL languages, right? And then that's one extreme. On the other extreme, you have programming languages, general purpose programming languages. So people are writing integrations using them as well. So that's the other end of the spectrum. We believe Ballerina is in this sweet spot in that spectrum. And then let's talk about that a little bit more during the demo, right? So let me move forward. So today, my goal is to write a simple integration, and for that purpose, I pick an integration related to a hotel reservation process. This is a very common integration. I'm not planning to build everything, all the steps that you can see here. So this image shows you various stages of things that happen when you book a room at a hotel using a booking engine, right? So you go to the booking engine, you search for options, you see multiple hotels, multiple dates, and you pick, you send an inquiry, you get the results, and then when you find where you want to stay and what dates, you confirm. And then if your room is still available in the system, the reservation is confirmed. And sometimes you pay then and there, sometimes you pay at the property, right? So anyway, once the reservation is confirmed, what happens is this system called PMS, Property Management System. One example would be Oracle Opera Cloud. It handles everything related to the reservations, and here the CRS is Central Reservation System. So when the reservation is confirmed, usually you need to trigger events or share the reservation or the booking with other parties. For example, you need to, when the reservation is confirmed, Oracle Opera, you need to inform the hotel chain, probably the exact front desk, your loyalty systems, and things like that. So my use case is something related to this step, right? So let me show you the sort of the blueprint of what I'm going to build today. I'm getting a request from Oracle Opera system. These names are made up, bookings and reservations, and also I generated the payloads using ChatGPT. So they are not the actual payload that you've been getting from these systems. This is just a way to come up with a simple integration, right? So request can contain one or more booking requests, and we are writing the integration service today. It's going to simply loop through each booking and publish that booking to the Kafka. So there are subscribers to this topic. All the interested parties are subscribed. They will get the notification. They will update the systems, right? So before we publish, we need to make a simple change, as in what you get is a booking request, but what you need to send to Kafka is something called reservation. So booking versus reservation is the same thing, but I just used here so that I can show how you do the data transformation in Ballerina, right? So booking is sort of, as far as I heard, sort of English term, and reservation is more American. Americans use English, American use reservation. So just a sample. All right, so this is what I want to build today. And in that process, I'll show you various capabilities in the platform. And one thing is, so if you find certain capabilities new, and let's say you may see certain things that you have never seen, hopefully. If you find something new, please post a message saying like, what do you think about them, how useful them, how you can use them. All right, so let's write some code. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my VS Code. Right, this is VS Code. I have already installed Ballerina VS Code plugin here. Yeah, and then I'm using Ballerina Swan Lake update 7.2. The Swan Lake, Ballerina Swan Lake is our latest stable version, which we released like 1.5 years ago, 2022 February, January, I guess. But we've been working on the language like from 2016. We've been iterating through the language design so that we can make it perfect. All right. So this is a blank canvas, right? There's nothing in it. I have this integration designer. I have the code view. So for this purpose, I'm going to use the designer, and I'll show you like how you can use the designer, how you can, like how easy it is to generate the service interface, the skeleton, everything uses the designer, right? So according to this diagram, first thing I want to do is write the integration service. So let's make it a RESTful API, and probably we need one resource like a post to accept all the new bookings and process and send perhaps 201 created response back to the client. Okay, so I'm going to click on the components. I can see 3 entry points here: main, service, and trigger. What I want is service, but I'll give a quick explanation to main and trigger. So main is so there are 3 kinds of integrations you can think of, like automations, reusable integrations. Basically, you expose the integration as an API, or triggers. Automations is like you write your integration, you run it once, then you schedule it whenever you want, like manually, or you can schedule it with a cron job to run every 5 minutes, every 1 hour. So they basically talk to one system, get some data, and update another system, things like that. Trigger, these are webhooks. For example, if you're interested in Google calendar events, and you do something every time someone creates a Google calendar event, things like that. So you can register. You can write the trigger in Ballerina and register the URL with the event source, right? So I'm going to pick the service. My base path is, my hotel chain is ABC today. So port, let's say 8081. Find the line, save. So when I do that, you can see here in the code view, I hope the code, this font size is okay. If not, I can increase it a bit more. So I think this is okay. So it generates me a service, and it also gives me a single resource. This is a get resource. A service is a construct in the language, kind of a higher level abstraction that's available in Ballerina. So I'm going to click on this, and I can see the get resource. But here, what I need is a post resource. So I'm going to edit this to post, right? And I'm going to make the resource path bookings. Save. So it updates. So it's a post resource now. The resource path is bookings. The complete path is hotspot / ABC / bookings. That's how it works. So we are almost done with the service interface, but it's not complete. We need to figure out the signature, like the payload, incoming payload, and what are we going to send back? What are the HTTP status codes that we want to send, right? So let's edit this and see. Here, I can add a payload. There are various types, payload types that I can put, XML, JSON. So JSON is a built-in type in the language, just like a string and int. So what do we mean by that is when you are in Ballerina land, you don't have to think about JSON. JSON is there. You receive JSON, you manipulate JSON, you send JSON back. Right? JSON is there, just like string. Right? If you are working in C, and if you want to manipulate strings, you have to be careful. You have to think about the null termination and things like that. So it's not first class in C, but in Java and Ballerina, string is just there. You don't have to think about it. You work with strings all the time. So JSON is something similar. You get similar experience with JSON in Ballerina. But directly using JSON as the payload type here has some problems. Because one thing is, if you put JSON here, then it doesn't tell you the exact structure of the JSON payload. What are the fields? What are their types? And like I think like that. It's just a blank JSON payload, right? And then when you generate an open API description out of this, putting JSON doesn't work. So you need to be a little bit more explicit about what you accept, right? The other problem is if you put JSON here inside the function also, you need to deal with JSON, right? Then you don't know at runtime, you don't know anything about the structure. You don't know whether this particular field is there or not. So the good analogy would be, let's say you walk into a room and it's dark and you know it's your room. You know it's your room. So you know where your phone is, you know where your watch is, but you don't know actually whether you kept it that place. So it's like guessing game, right? So if the phone is there, you're good. If the phone is not there, now you have to deal with that situation. So working with JSON directly is something similar, right? So, and just more work. So our recommendation is, instead of working with JSON, write a record type. So records, especially the Ballerina type system, is designed so that it works like a schema. For example, in the case of JSON, if you write a Ballerina record, it works like a JSON schema, right? So, so you don't have to do anything special. Like you can put the record type here. Your request will automatically bind to the JSON record type. So the way to write a record is you can write it here in the code itself. That works too. Or if you have a sample payload, you can generate the record type using the sample payload. So I'll show you how you do it. I'm going to go back to the main designer view, click components, and there's this record. So you can, if you have a sample JSON, good. You can also create a record using sample XML as well. In this way, you get XML to record, XML to JSON transformation. So import a JSON, right? So I have all the payloads. Let me quickly show you all the payloads before this. So this is the booking that you can expect from Oracle Opera. This is the request, a one booking. You have the booking ID, guest, booking details, and things like that. So 3 top level elements, and then a bunch of sub elements, right? Then when you look at reservation, this is what you have to send to Kafka. Same structure. Sorry, I think, yeah. Let me close. So this is the booking. This is the reservation. So you have the booking ID. You have the reservation ID here. I think guest element is almost same. There are no changes. You have booking details, reservation details. There are some changes here. You have number of kids here. There are no number of kids there. A special request is a string array. Special request is just a string, right? So it's like you join all these strings with a comma separator, right? So if you want a data bind, this is how you do it. We'll get to that later. So I'm interested in representing this payload, this booking, which is the payload I'm getting from Oracle Opera. So I'm going to close this. Right, so let me upload the JSON file. Booking payload, all good, and I'm going to give a name to the root record. Booking request. I hope everyone is there. All right, just to make sure that everything's good. So booking request. I'm going to make separate record definition for all these, let's say the inner fields, inner elements, right? So click save. So it gives me 3 records here. Booking request has 3 fields, guest and details, and the rest of it. So it looks good. Okay, so I can see the records here as well. So I can click on the guest. I can see the guest. Let me just close it. This is a nice way to visualize the record. It's a simple thing. Let me start from here. You can get to the designer from here. You can click on the guest, click on the details, right? But when you go back here, and this is sort of this is not interesting yet, but we'll take a look at this when you add everything like Kafka here. But what I want to show you here is here you have this something called types, and when you click on that, you really see the connections between these types. This is code, but when you visualize it, you get a much better understanding of how these records are related. When your interface types, service interface types, when you're a little bit more, you can easily figure out their relationships. It's a handy tool. And when you can come back to this in 6 months, and you can easily figure out what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to go back. My records are there. I'm going to go back to the designer service, edit. I'm going to add a payload now. Now I can see the booking request, right? What I need is a request array. So I'm going to make it an array. I'm going to save. So now you can see it's updated. So this post accepts an array of booking requests. All good. Now let's update this return. So this is the post. So let's delete the default one, and I'm going to add a 201 created for now. Right. So if everything goes well, it gives you 201 created. This is a post. And what if an error occurs? So my recommendation here is to add another response type. Let's say if an error occurs, usually you send internal server error, right? Save, that's good. So we have a union type here with HTTP created and internal server error. So if everything goes well, let's return this status code. And if we encounter any error, we can send internal server error. So this way, I'm clearly communicating to the HTTP listener that I'm giving you these responses. Right? The previous error question mark works okay. Like, so if you remember earlier, there were error question mark. Now error is a built-in type in Ballerina. You can return errors. We don't have a exception model per se. We have panics, but errors are fundamental. We always return errors from functions. So if you return an error from the resource function, what happens is HTTP listener or the HTTP engine treat error and convert that to internal server error. But in addition to that, it by default takes the details available in the error message, error details, key value pairs, and put everything into the HTTP 500 body. So there is a possibility like for you to unintentionally expose certain internal details. So my recommendation always is to use internal server error and then handle the error inside the resource function. So you can control what you're exposing. All right, I think our interface is ready. So I'm gonna return just dummy return for now, just to get rid of this error. Otherwise, it will say you have to return something. All right, this is ready. Service interface looks good. This is what exactly what we need. We can try it. You get a Swagger like a view with all the details, all the basically the resources. When you expand the resource, you can see application JSON. You can see the schema as well, like everything, right? So everything is generated from this little abstraction available. You don't have to do anything as a developer, right? Even now when you run, and also it shows you what are the response types. The other thing is you can now easily, let's say, use our Bal Open API tool and generate an Open API specification for this service. And you can share with others to invoke your service. This is right by default, it goes into your package directory. So this is that. And then you can use any Open API visualization tools that you have here. So this and our try tool sort of very similar, because actually in the Ballerina case, we don't have to generate Open API to try it. It works because of these abstractions. All right. The other thing about this booking request putting this is it automatically validates a payload, right? If you send a payload that doesn't that is not according to this booking request, HTTP engine will fail. So I can quickly show you that. Let's run it. It's running, and let's try it. So I'm going to go to this resource. I'm going to say try it. Let me copy the payload. So I have this sample payload with 10 booking requests generated by ChatGPT. I'm going to put here, paste. So let's wait the server to start. And then after that, okay, server is running. I'm going to execute. So it executed. Let's see the response. It has to be 201. Yeah, because we are sending 201 for now, right? Everything is okay. But now let's go ahead and do some changes to the payload. For example, this is the last element, last booking. Let's make this number of guests a string, just for the demo. And I executed it. I get a 400 bad request, and here it says, okay, your 9th element, which means I have 10, 0 index, 9th element, booking details, number of guests, should be type of int, but we found 3. I know here we are exposing some internal details about the types that you are defined. This is the default error message that we generate. We can improve this a little bit further to remove these details. Also, there are ways for you to customize this error. So you can intercept the 400. You can write a tiny little interceptor and customize the error message. But anyway, this is by default data validation. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, the interface is done. So now my task is to basically do the data mapping and then publish to Kafka. And after that, I think we can test it out. Okay, I have a Kafka running in my local machine. So I have this little Kafka VS Code plugin. It shows me all the topics that are there. It's a handy tool. Okay, so now what I need is a Kafka producer because I'm producing events to a topic. So let's go to the designer again. And if you're not sure about like how to do this, let's go to a component. We have something called connectors. And let's search for Kafka. Right? It shows if we have available connector to Kafka or any cloud, any system, it should show up here. So we have a Kafka producer, consume, and the listener. So let's use Kafka producer for this example, and it gives me this configuration and variable, and this is sort of the Kafka producer, and I need to configure the cluster URL and optional configuration. So let's go through the configuration here. So if you're not sure what's there, this UI is a handy tool. Again, you can like browse through what are the things available for you to configure. So I'm interested in setting this retry count. So let's say retry count should be 3. It should retry 3 times before giving it up to publish. Right. So there, likewise, there are various configurations available for any connector. This UI is useful, and you can go to the documentation from here as well. So let me save it. Okay, it gives me the Kafka producer. I'm gonna rename this to just to say Kafka. Right now, the next step is configuring the cluster URL. So this URL is something that that can come from outside the program, from the environment when you run. So you don't really want to hard code this, right? So the way to handle that, way to externalize configurations in Ballerina is something called configurable variables. Right? It is again a language concept designed to make this experience a little bit better. So what I need is a URL. So I'm going to select string here. And variable name is Kafka URL. The question mark says this is a mandatory configurable variable. If at the runtime, if the runtime cannot find a value for this variable, then the Ballerina program refuses to start. It will not start, and then you can troubleshoot even in Kubernetes cluster. So I think that is much better than like starting up and then figuring out these errors much later, as in when you hit certain code paths. Right? So it's again a first class concept in the language. Right? It's very simple but powerful. So right now, okay, my producer is almost good. Let me update this with the Kafka URL. Right now, let me try to start in and show you something. Now, when I run now, it says there are mandatory configurable variables that are required to run the program. I can run anyway, but it will fail definitely. I can create the config.toml. So if you have defined configurable variables, one or more variables, when you create the config.toml, it will give you the sample config.toml with all the configurable variables. So config.toml is a way of providing values to these configurable variables. There are other ways as well. So if I do this, it gives me a sample config.toml, and I can just say my Kafka cluster is this, right? And the config.toml is available in the package directory. Balrun usually pick it up from there. It's a handy way to use that in the development time. But if we are running in production, there are other ways to provide these config.toml. You can use an environment variable to give a path to the config.toml. There's another environment variable where you can give the content of the config.toml as well. That's what Ballerina users are using. Okay, so that is there. Now if you run it, should work. So the next step is to write the logic. So we have a array of requests. Let's iterate through using for each. Let's define a variable booking request here, and then iterate. The payload is actually an array of requests, so this works okay. Now here I need to do two things. One is transform booking. Let's see what ChatGPT says. A booking request, transform a booking request to a reservation. Right, that's step one. Once you do that, then step two is, okay, this is good. Public reservation to Kafka. Right, that's it. After that, integration is almost done. So, okay, so how do you do this? I can write code, I can write a function, and that function input is the booking request and output is a reservation. I don't have a reservation yet. We'll figure it out. So I can write that and I can manually assign fields from one record to another. That's okay, but that's simple for a very small record. But if you have many fields, that is time consuming and most importantly boring for a hardcore developer. So we have designed a tool called Data Mapper. Data Mapper is actually a common tool in all the integration platforms, right? So you can easily map certain payload to another payload, right? So the way to do that in Ballerina is here, click on the component, you can see the Data Mapper, right? So let's give a name to the Data Mapper, booking to reservation, transform booking to reservation, all good. So always you have inputs and output. Input here, we have already defined input, that is the booking request. So let's give the booking request, a single booking request, not an array. So output is a challenge because I am yet to define the output. I don't have a reservation, but I have a sample payload here, reservation, right? The first step is to define the record in Ballerina. So let's see, existing record or new record. I selected the new record using a JSON, upload reservation payload, right? This is the reservation. Use the reservation for the root record. Okay, I need these, all good. Now it's, as you can see, it gives me three records here: reservation details, and guest. So here I want to pick reservation. So what do we have here? We have the Data Mapper, booking request is the input, output is reservation. I think let's save. So when you do that, you get this nice looking Data Mapper UI, right? Where you can see booking request on your left, reservation on the right. You just need to drag and drop and connect the circles. But before that, let me show you the generated code as well. So a data mapper is represented as a function in Ballerina, just like how you write this, like if you want to do this by writing code. But the difference is data mapper function is not a regular function with a function body, but instead it is a function with an expression as a body, right? So if it's a normal function, then as you can see here, you have the function body, right? This is the body after the return. But here, after the return, what you have is an expression. So different syntax. You can have a single expression here. And when you write this function, it's much easier for us to visualize and get into this view. We'll show that. One more thing here, certainly another improvement that we can do to the tool chain. Now, both reservation and booking has the guest element. At the moment, we generate the same guest twice. We could have, I think we can improve this, not to generate duplicates. So For now, let me delete. So there are no errors except this because the data mapper is not complete. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on, let's map, transform. So I'm going to say booking ID to booking ID, reservation ID, right? Let me close this. So I have the full screen view. And I think guest and guest is the same. So we can just map there. We don't have to individually map. And then I don't think we can do booking details. Reservation structure is different. We have a hotel ID here. We have a hotel code. Rest of this stuff is pretty same. Let me quickly update them. Number of guests. Now we have a challenge here. We have number of kids here and number of kids is not here. So number of kids should be equal to the length of this array. So let's try to do this. Okay, it gives me an error because this is an int array and this is an int. Let me fix this. So what we need is the length of the kids ages array. So it's JSON. I can see the length. Yeah, I get the array length and that's done. So that's good. And also I need to assign kids ages to kids ages here. Right, now the tricky one. Tricky one is I have a string array and I need to somehow convert string array to a string. Let's see. So of course, this is going to give an error. All right, so what I need here is to basically a capability to join strings using a separator, right? So right now, this may not sound straightforward to you because we are also in the process of like improving our data mapper to give you suggest these common cases. This is a very common utility. Likewise, we are building some common utilities and we can suggest them here. So you don't have to worry about it. For simple things, you can make even simpler. But for now, let's go to the libraries section and look for a join function. That's what I do. So we have this string join, right? Capability. And if you are not sure what to do, you can look at the description and the sample. So there are two samples here. First sample join using a space and then you get a list of strings and you can see the output. The second one is an array. This is exactly what I want. I have an array and then string join, comma, dot, dot, dot array. So here dot, dot, dot means you expand the array into its elements, right? So you need, we can do that too. We have an array. So let's go to this expression. I'm going to click on the separator and I'm going to say it is a comma and then I'm going to click on suggestions for the expression, booking request, booking details, and what I want is a special request. And then it's not straightforward at the moment, but you need to put dot, dot, dot to expand the array, right? That's it. I guess it should work. Okay, looks good, no errors. So let's go back to the code. Now, when you go to the code, now what you see is a function generated. And you can always, like if I close this, you can always visualize this as a data mapper, right? So yeah, that's Ballerina data mapper. So we have the transform function. Now let's do a reservation. Thank you, ChatGPT. I have a reservation. I'm passing a booking request. I get reservation. Now let's use the Kafka to send the payload. Basically, I'm sending a Kafka record. So value should be a record, so reservation. And the topic is now, I don't have a topic here. I don't know what topic is. So let's keep it like this for now. And I'm gonna create a variable. So this is what I get from the Kafka send, an error, right? So let's rename this to status. And question mark is like this can fail with an error, then you get the error. If this is successful, then there's no return, right? There's nothing. It's successful. It doesn't return anything. So that is represented using a question mark. So question mark is same as a union with Ballerina nil, right? So we have a nil type in the language represent nothing, right? So it's a union, but this is very common. So we have this shorthand way of saying that, right? So I'm going to check. Yeah, this is exactly what I want. We don't need these parentheses in Ballerina. So if the status is Kafka error, return HTTP internal server error. But this is not you would do if you're writing this for real, right? Because this is going to fail. Like let's say you process all 9 requests, and in the 10th one fails. Now we are going to send to internal server error to the client. But let's keep this for the demo to make it simple, right? So let's move this here and format the code. All right, I think we are almost done. So, okay, this is almost done. We can try it. We can invoke it. But before we invoke, let me show you something else, like because we generate new records and everything. Now, this is what my integration designer looks like. So I can see the records like reservation details now. Let me click on that, right? And the reservation, it seems like the booking. Now there are more records now. Guest, booking details. If you want to see everything, you can go to the architecture view. And here you can see, this is still boring because it's not a complicated integration, but you can see your service that is connected to Kafka. This is level 1, right? Level 2 UI, you can see all the resources that are available in this service, right? If we have more connections, you can see a better picture. Anyway, there are a lot of articles about this. If you're interested, we can share with you. The third one is a type hierarchy. Now, this gets interesting because now we have a little bit more types. We have the booking request, we have reservation. Now, reservation again connect to the same guest, booking request again connect to the same guest, booking details, and reservation details. This is very, to me, this is useful. I can easily figure out basically the type hierarchy. It's much better than looking at the code to a certain extent, right? So we visualize records, we visualize transformations, and then now it's time to visualize the resource, right? So you can get to these different places. Let me click on the designer view and go to the service. And then this is the resource. I click on this. And now you can visualize your integration logic as well, right? So here you can see Kafka, that I'm connected to Kafka. This is a loop. You can probably read the code, right? So we each booking request, I'm going to transform to a reservation, I'd see, and then I'm going to send it to Kafka. If it fails, I'm going to return internal server. If it's good, then continue the loop and everything successful, send HTTP created, right? So even if the integration is complicated, you can still view this picture. You can also just look at the integration, the network integrations, network connections. If you don't want to see the details, that also works. Okay, we can try it now. So I'm going to try it. Starting up, let's the try it view. We're almost at the end of the session. I'm going to copy all the complete booking payload and try it out. I'm going to post. Let's put the payload here. Before I execute, now I don't have any Kafka subscribers. How do I know that I'm publishing successfully? So I have this little Kafka Explorer, and I have this resource. Okay, I think we missed one thing. We missed to, my bad. We missed to add the topic. So the topic usually has to come from, again, we can configure that to come from the external. So let's add another configurable variable. This time I'll use the code configurable thing, not Kafka URL. It's Kafka topic, right? So there's additional characters here. So looks good. Now I'm going to stop and I'm going to again run. Okay. When you run, it says, okay, there are missing mandatory add to config. So I'm going to say reservations. So I think, yeah, and we can run now. Everything should be set. So how do I, like I'm going to go to this Kafka Explorer back. There's a reservations topic. I'm going to start the consumer, right? So here you can see the consumer starts, it's waiting for me to publish. So server is running, and I think I already put payload. Let me hit execute. I get a payload, but 500. Interesting. The demo codes are not with me. Let me see what's going on. I think I can put a log here. Something I should do. Print error. Error, publish into Kafka. Let's say reservation. Logging is key value pairs at 1, and then we can also dump the error that we get from Kafka as well. So this is good. I'm going to run it again. I hope my Kafka is running. Yeah, Kafka is running. So let's give it a try. Okay. It says invalid topic reservation. Failed to send to the server invalid topics. Okay, I think I made a mistake. I defined the configure variable, but I think I forgot to update. Right? Thanks for the logs. I'm going to use Kafka topics. So I'm going to run it again. Right? Let's see how it works. Let's see whether it works. And I have the consumer started, and I just need to hit execute when the service is done. All right, I think it's all good now. I can see all the 10 reservations. I can see in the subscriber view. Yeah, reservations are there. If we go here, I can see, should be able to see 201. Okay, that's good. So I think that's good. One thing to notice here is we have this warning, concurrent calls will not be made. This means, so Ballerina, because of the language constructs, Ballerina basically can perform like compile time, concurrency safety checks, and the compiler basically says, looking at this code, it says, okay, I'm not confident enough to invoke this resource function using parallel requests there, because there are some issues. So when you look at this code, you can see the payload is there. I'm just looping through the payload. I'm not using any external global variables. Reservation, this function looks good. Only problem I can see is this Kafka, right? This is a sort of a variable not defined inside the service even. So let me click on this. I think the problem is here, if I make it final, but it means no one can basically change the variable. It's read only to a certain extent. I think that'll, okay, now it's not there. So that's also something I wanted to highlight, and you will get to know when you write code. Ballerina is able to handle these cases pretty well at compile time. And so not all the cases, but a lot of cases can be analyzed. Okay, so I think that's it. I wanted to show you some other stuff like the tracing matrices and how to deploy this to like Docker, Kubernetes, Graal VM. I think I'll probably have another session. I'll use this sample and show you the next steps, especially writing test cases. Okay. Let's see what I have here. Yep. Okay, if you are interested in Ballerina, there are tons of content available. And if you are new to the community, just you can use various channels to connect with us. And thank you.